Billionaire CEO, forced the janitor to give investment. Advice as a joke, but froze at his first words. Marcus Chen hadn't smiled in 3 years, not genuinely anyway. The kind of smile that reached his eyes died the day his wife lost her battle with cancer, leaving him with a fortune that felt meaningless and a penthouse that echoed with silence. As CEO of Titanium Capital, one of Wall Street's most ruthless investment firms, he'd built an empire on cold calculations and merciless decisions. His employees feared him. His competitors despised him. And truthfully, he'd stopped caring about either. The holiday party was a circus Marcus barely tolerated. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across the ballroom of his Manhattan headquarters, where executives in $1,000 suits clinked champagne glasses and laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. Marcus stood apart, nursing his second scotch, watching the performance with dead eyes. "Hey, boss, you see the janitor over there?" Brad Thompson, his chief financial officer, sidled up with that particular brand of cruelty that came from too much privilege and too little character. Old guy's been cleaning these floors for what, 20 years? Probably never made more than minimum wage his whole life. Marcus glanced across the room. An elderly man in a gray uniform was quietly emptying trash, cans near the buffet table, trying to be invisible as he always did. Marcus had seen him around for years but never bothered learning his name. Why would he? "I've got an idea," Brad continued, his words slurring slightly. "Let's ask him for investment advice. Can you imagine? Guy probably keeps his life savings in a coffee can," he snorted. "Come on, it'll be hilarious." Everyone needs a good laugh. Something ugly stirred in Marcus's chest, not quite conscience, but close. Yet the numbness that had consumed him for 3 years proved stronger. What did it matter? Nothing mattered anymore. "Fine," Marcus heard himself say. "Let's have some fun." Brad's eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. He raised his voice, cutting through the party noise. "Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please?" The room gradually quieted. "Our esteemed CEO has decided to democratize our investment strategy. We're going to ask," he paused for dramatic effect, "our janitor for his expert financial advice." Laughter rippled through the crowd, the kind that makes your stomach turn if you have any decency left. Marcus watched the old man's face flush red as heads turned his way. He looked trapped, like a deer in headlights. "Come on, don't be shy," Brad called out, gesturing him forward. "Mr. What's your name?" "Samuel," the janitor said quietly. "Samuel Price." "Samuel, come up here, Samuel. Our CEO wants to hear your investment wisdom." More laughter, meaner now. Marcus stood silent, his face an emotionless mask. As Samuel slowly made his way through the crowd, the old man's hands trembled slightly as he approached, but his spine straightened with a dignity that made something twist uncomfortably in Marcus's gut. "So, Samuel," Marcus said, his voice flat, "you've been here a long time. If you had money to invest, what would you do with it?" The room fell silent, waiting for the punchline. Samuel looked at Marcus for a long moment, and something in those weathered eyes made Marcus suddenly want to call the whole thing off. But pride, stupid, destructive pride, kept his mouth shut. Samuel cleared his throat. When he spoke, his voice was soft but steady. "Sir, I do have money to invest. I've been investing for 37 years. The smirk on Brad's face faltered. Marcus felt his eyebrows rise despite himself. 25 years ago, Samuel continued, I started putting $5 a week, every single week, into an index fund. Never missed a payment, not when my wife got sick, not when my son needed braces, not when the car broke down. $5. Every week. The room was utterly silent now. The laughter had evaporated like morning mist. But that's not the investment I'm most proud of, Mr. Chen. Samuel's eyes held Marcus's gaze. See, my real investment was in something that can't be measured in dollars. When my daughter told me she wanted to be a doctor, everyone said we couldn't afford it. But I worked 3 jobs. My wife sewed clothes at night. We invested every spare penny into her education. Not because we'd get returns, but because that's what you do when you love someone. Marcus felt something crack in his chest, a fissure in the ice that had encased his heart for 3 years. She graduated medical school 5 years ago, Samuel said, his voice growing thick with emotion. Dr. Jennifer Price. She works at Memorial Sloan Kettering now, in the oncology department. He paused. where she treats cancer patients who can't always afford their care. That's my dividend, Mr. Chen. Every life she touches. Every family that gets a little more time together. A tear rolled down Samuel's weathered cheek. My wife passed 2 years. Ago. Cancer. But she lived long enough to see our daughter save her first life. That's a return on investment that would make any of your portfolios look like pocket change. The silence in the room was deafening. Marcus couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The glass in his hand trembled. So if you're asking my advice, sir? Samuel's voice was gentle now, almost kind despite the humiliation he'd just endured. I'd say invest in people. Not for what they can give you back, but because their success becomes your legacy. That's the only investment that matters when you're lying in bed at night, wondering if your life meant something. Marcus's throat constricted. His wife's final words echoed in his memory. Don't let this make you hard. Marcus, don't let it make you cruel. Promise me you'll still see people. Really see them. He'd broken that promise. For 3 years, he'd broken it every single day. Mr. Price, Marcus said, his voice cracking. How much do you have in that index fund now? Samuel looked confused by the question. About $43,000, sir. I was planning to retire next year. You're retired now. Effective immediately. Marcus turned to Brad, whose face had gone pale. And you're fired. Security will escort you out. What? You can't? Get out of my building. Marcus's voice was steel. He turned back to Samuel. Mr. Price, I'd like to offer you a position. Titanium Capital needs a chief humanity officer. Someone to remind us that numbers represent real lives, real dreams. Your salary will be $300,000 a year, and your first assignment is to help me establish a foundation. We're going to fully fund medical school scholarships for 50 students from working families, and we're going to endow a cancer research chair at Sloan Kettering in your wife's name. Samuel's eyes widened. Sir, I don't understand. I'm investing in you, Mr. Price, in what you taught me just now. Because you're right. I've been so focused on money that I forgot what it's actually for. Marcus felt tears threatening for the first time in 3 years. My wife died of cancer. And I've spent 3 years building walls instead of bridges. I think she'd have liked your daughter very much. Samuel stepped forward and did something no one in that room had dared to do in years. He embraced Marcus Chen, the billionaire. CEO stood rigid for just a moment before his arms came up, and he hugged this janitor, who'd just changed his entire world with a few simple words. Thank you, Marcus whispered. Thank you for reminding me what being human means. As the holiday party resumed around them, but different now, softer, more genuine, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 years. Not quite happiness, not yet, but something better, purpose. The kind that comes not from accumulation, but from giving. Not from rising above others, but from lifting them up. Samuel Price had cleaned these floors for 20 years, invisible and ignored. But on one December night, with quiet dignity and profound wisdom, he'd swept away the debris from one broken man's soul and shown him what true wealth really means. The investment advice of a janitor had just saved a billionaire's life.